Hey everyone, welcome back. Now, in one of the previous videos from a few weeks ago, showed a couple stuff in a haul video of new kits to the collection, and one of them was this kit right here, Testors Lincoln Mint Ultra Metal Series 69 Pontiac GTO The Judge in 1/24 scale, and there was also two other metal model kits in the batch. So Fair haven't built well, more along the wise built two GTOs before, but of course being the 67 by MPC. So Fair, take a look at the 69 GTO, which which seems quite interesting. Now, did already go through this already, and of course once you take stuff out of the package once, doesn't all fit in quite well. So getting into parts, do come in a nice sliding tray. Watch box here. Yeah, you know what? I'll probably put it to the side. Now, fair go through. Fair go through this. Just check over the parts and then build it up as we go. So gives you so instructions here give you a little bit of an introduction to the car itself. Then along with pretty much like your standard stuff like assembly directions and detailing stuff. That's good. So it's pretty much quite straightforward. Now, trying to remember, I built a couple of similar metal model kits a couple times. I think the most recent one was the Mercedes 300 Gullwing from a couple years ago now, at least. And the first one I ever did was the F650 Super Cruiser. So, nice to see how this goes. So, looking at some of the parts here, we got what looks to be wheels and tires and engine parts molded in a medium light gray. So, this open, got the top of what I believe it. From my understanding, this car would have the 455 big block. So pretty much mostly all here. Thing is though, being molded in like a light silver, the engine will have to get painted along with the accessories, as this isn't really what a Pontiac engine would be, as they're typically like they're like a light blue. So want to get parts together, gonna be painting them up. Now got here the wheels, which quite nicely they're got the silver outlines, and then have the stone gray inserts, which is quite nice, and not needing to have to do a lot of touch-ups on that. Got wheel backs, wheel hub pins, and the lower half of the engine. Put the garbage to the side. Got some of the interior and chassis parts, and which is quite nice to see that the chassis itself has quite a decent amount of detail. So got pretty sizable locating marks for where parts will go, and then screw locating tabs. And of course, got the gas tank painted in silver, which I'm kind of curious on how at the factories these would have been produced, because like I'm thinking like have a decal or have like a tampo machine that stamps out the outline of certain parts to give the detail. Then got interior accessories here, which consist of the parcel shelf in the back, radiator, and interior door panels. Of course, got nice trunk liner with spare tire and tire jack. Of course, back here is textured, which actually which by feeling of it, I don't know if it's like super fine plastic or if it's got genuine felt texture to it, because it does feel quite soft to the touch with quite a smooth texture actually. So not quite sure, not sure about that. And then also to noticing now, the door panels, they all have grab handles and window cranks all painted up as they would be on the actual car. It's quite nice. Then you got some more plastic molded parts, like you have the floor pan with locating holes. Let's get this one out. Actually open. Yeah, by the looks of it, these are actually felt lined. As this one here, you can definitely, it might be hard to see on camera, but it does have a felt-like texture to it, which is quite unique actually, as a lot of stuff like this you'd have to do yourself. It must be like special, there must have been like a certain procedure. Like to see something like this from factory is quite a unique sighting. Then I'll just leave these in the bags for now, as got the front seats and the rear seat itself all fairly nicely done up. Nothing too crazy for interior design. And got into the lower half now, is that got some more of the interior parts, like the seat bottoms and seat backs, along with some suspension, like you got the lower control arms, subframe crossing, and the air filter, which nicely has the padding around for the engine. Got radiator shroud and fan already in place, so that's all looking pretty good. Now finishing off with the black stuff, got what looks to be a mix between the interior and interior and suspension components. As seen here, got looks like some. Actually, this might be actually the mounting for either the hood or the trunk. Then the firewall, steering knuckles for left and right side, steering column with gear selector or with hazard signal and turn signal molded in, and what looks to be the tilt shifter lever. And got quite a nicely detailed painted up steering wheel. Not pretty much black with the silver trim accents, which looks pretty nice. Then got the dashboard, quite basic. Does have the badging for the GTO or for the judge package. So yeah, that's all looking really nice. Then start getting in here, we got pretty much the chrome tree being the outer trim, wheel surrounds, and front or the rear bumper. As a lot of at least looking with these 60s Pontiacs, they didn't really have much for a front bumper, rather more just a nose cone to absorb collision and impact from. Another chrome tree here, focusing on more a couple more trim pieces and engine accessories. And of course, then we got orange painted pieces, being here the rear spoiler with the Judge badging printed on it. Quite nice, quite surprisingly even paint job for the plastic parts, especially for something like this. You'd sometimes have a couple wrinkles in the paint here and there, but otherwise it's looking quite smooth. It's got a bit of a haze, but not too bad, at least. And okay, let's see here. Got card back with cardboard cutouts for the license plate, and yeah, pretty much that and stuff. It's quite interesting though how it's like a cardboard. Feels like it's got like it's got cardboard backing, but feels like they're more applicable or applicable stickers, perhaps. So not quite sure what that's about. Then do have this nice kind of photo etched mesh guard for the front cowl. So interesting to see that. Then getting on to some of the last few of the plastic parts. We got the windshield here with full headliner, dome light, and sun visors molded in, which looks pretty nice. Of course, pretty much paint the inside of this separately, just to match the rest of the interior of the car. Yeah, so that's looking quite neat. Then got second half of the clear tree featuring the lower turn signals, rear windows, and tail lights. And of course the headlights here, which from what I've seen is that the kit here actually gives you the option between going one of two ways. You can either have the full-time exposed headlights or the hideaway lights, which is quite nice, as you'd have cars with various options, and some with either feature deletes or add-ons that wouldn't have been on the base car. So here's the body of the car itself, which is nicely wrapped up, which to my surprise has a good amount of weight to it, all metal. And of course, opening trunk and hood. So get the bag open. There we go. Here's the car now in the fine, I think from Grabber Orange, I think it was called. So this looks quite nice, and got the hood and trunk here. Of course, these aren't mounted in at the moment, so they are kind of loose, but it is nice to know that they come in a nice protective layer to protect the paint during transportation, as you never really know what's going to happen between these. So here's the trunk lid itself. It's looking fairly good. A little bit of imperfections around the edges, so not really too much of a concern, especially if it's right where the wing would mount onto. So stay on like so. Get the garbage out of the way. And get this off. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so so pretty much the outline of the engine base also painted, which is quite nice. Pretty much cuts down on work that will have to be done later on. And let's see. Here's the ram. Yeah, here's the nice hood with the ram air intake and bullet nose. Yeah, so that's all looking really good. And of course, underside painted, which is a nice touch, as something like that may not be focused on as much. Yeah, so that's quite nice. There is a couple paint chips on the hinges themselves, but thinking about it, it might not be too big of a deal as where they mount. You're never really going to see that from the underside. Yeah, so that's pretty much how. Yeah, so overall, it's looking quite nicely. And probably should mention too, one of the main reasons that I've pretty much gone for the GTO kit to showcase is that the pretty much a lot of people already have the monogram or the modern Revell version of the 69 GTO, which is a fairly kind of sought after kit by most collectors. So myself, it's been a little bit of a challenge to try and find the plastic model version. So pretty much gone with the metal version. Yeah, let's just see how it goes. And then also to have had a family relative who used to own I forget if it was a 68 or 69, as they are very similar, just different parts here and there. But he had a relative who had a GTO back in the 80s and 90s. So having a little bit of family connection with something like this, quite nice. Plus two, it's one out of like the variations of the body, like you'd have like say the Chevelle or the Oldsmobile Cutlass or the 442 and whatever other various versions that GM had of these back in the 60s. The Pontiac version I found is the better looking of all the body styles. But of course, taste being subjective, everyone could have their different preferences on which one they liked. Yeah, so I'll get everything here, pretty much get stuff here sorted out and start putting stuff together, see how everything goes. So, on here a little bit more, quite a bit more of the car started and put together. Now, a little bit of this got a little bit carried away on building this, as it's been quite the project. So, pretty much just have the chassis sitting together like so, and pretty much a couple things already went ahead and done was assemble the interior, pretty much consisting of seats, get the pedals, engine, and firewall, which has all got it's got okay detail, not quite as much as I was expecting. Did go ahead paint up the engine. That's didn't really have a dark enough color for a bluish green, so pretty much just went for a light blue for the engine and transmission. And of course got one valve cover glued in, as so the holes here they do have enough friction to hold in the valve covers, though you do want the extra glue strength to hold on. So got that, and then got the full complement of steering up front. And for the seats, quite an interesting way to put them together, as there's five separate components to them, and they all have to fit aligned properly. So pretty much got the seat bottom, which in the carpet does have a proper outlined area for where the seats will sit, even though it is quite faint. So they do slide a little bit while getting it aligned. So a little bit have to be aware of on something like this. So pretty much that would just fit in like so, and just tighten up the screw on the underside. So get that dealt with. Yes, and then of course you'll pretty much take the seat backing fit that into place. Now, in order to get the seat backings actually to fit or to sit on without falling off, pretty much been using this Gorilla Super Glue, which has got a brush and nozzle end, which I find works really well, as regular plastic cement will hold, but it's not a long-lasting bond that'll create between the two materials. So just something to be aware of. And of course, got one of the rear panels installed, and actually got the about a good about a good 2/3 of the interior all put together. Now, I was experimenting curious to know how the interior panels fit in. So it's pretty much, we'll just slide into into the top groove inside the window, which will keep it in place. There's no tabs to keep it sitting in place. But once you get the body installed, the interior tub will push up against the sidewalls, which will keep everything in place, which is quite good. The glass did wiggle around quite a lot, so pretty much just glued the glass seal to the panel. Of course, if you really want to, you can have the choice between either including these or not. Is that, and of course, same goes actually for the for the wheel well trim. As let's go for the other side. And so the trim pretty much just slides into place like so, and then the interior and chassis tub, there's a little bit of a ridge on the end, which will keep it in place. And so that's something not to worry about having to glue and keep together. And something I did forget while I was doing the parts review, you do have the full solid metal rear axle with linkages and drive shaft, and this pretty much just slides over top of the transmission, and everything just really clicks into place. And then with the friction with some of the friction holding into place. And then you do have the screw mounts behind the back seat, which you do want to make sure you get that before you insert the trunk, the trunk liner, as when you get that installed, the space is quite limited to get a wide screwdriver inside. So there's just that to be aware of. Then on the underside, of course, you want to get your exhaust system set up and installed first. One thing I have found is that there's 4 points of contact. You have the exhaust from the manifold, the muffler connecting to the floorboard, another support underneath the axle, then the final one by the gas tank. Now, you don't want to glue everything in at once, as you still need to get the access holes to screw the body onto the chassis, because then otherwise you're pretty much stuck like that. And if you leave the axle and exhaust system until the very end when everything's installed, you can't get inside to fasten down the exhaust, or can't fasten down the rear axle. So it does require a little bit of planning, but with the instructions, it's been rather straightforward with the process. Now, for a lot of it, it's pretty much just take parts, put them together, see how it goes. But yeah, overall, it's been quite a simple build. A little bit of problem solving here and there, but nothing too major. Then let's hear what else you do. Yeah, Then of course then here's got the radiator and fan setup, which you have the face for the engine, which pretty much just fits into place, and just adjusting it to where everything fits square with each other. And of course you got the coolant lines that go for the top and bottom of the engine. So a little bit, these pieces will probably have to get glued into place just to hold them steady while everything's getting put together. One thing I was surprised about that might be a little bit of a disappointment to some, but you don't really, when the engine's together, you don't really have any timing, but you don't have any of the serpentine belts at all. So it's a little bit unrealistic how pretty much every kit out there, when you build the engine, you have the belt and pulley systems already assembled. So yeah, so that's just one of the things about it. At least when you're working on the engine bay, of course. And to go ahead and detail up the grill slats. Now, it did go ahead and detail both the open headlight and closed headlight variation. As not sure if I'll do this for the final model. I'm looking at having it where one headlight's open and other one's closed, like how vacuum lines may not be working fully quite properly, so you have a set of headlights that are still staying up, or you have a headlight cover that's still up whereas it should be down, or you could have it vice versa where the headlights are on but only the one side wanted to lift up and the other side stuck closed. So just something else to something to play around with. Did have a little bit of an incident where got a bit of a chip in the nose cone and a little bit on the front face of the hood, just to get to sit properly when I was test fitting. Now, there's quite a lot of overspray on the hood hinges, so it's a little bit stiff, or it's quite a lot stiff trying to get the hood properly open and closed. So it's not exactly quite something to be opening up quite often here and there. But otherwise, like with the doors and the trunk, those both open quite nicely. So that's pretty much that. And of course, still have a couple other parts here, like of course got the grill inserts painted up, and a little bit working on the bumper here. Got the turn signals installed. Now for these, they feel like they sit out a bit too much, which turns out to actually be how it's supposed to sit. So initially I did end up trimming the backings, as a lot of the parts actually did have a bunch of extra sprue hanging out. So like you'd have these nubs sticking out from the plastic, which you'll have to, if anyone ever gets stuff like these, those are going to be one of the things to look out for. Get those pieces, or to get those tabs trimmed. But of course make sure they're ones that aren't supposed to be there, instead of removing actual important ones, as you're going to have a hard time trying to align everything. So yeah, so that's pretty much how everything's been going so far. So probably get a few more things here put together, and then maybe do one last update before the big reveal, getting everything all together. Yeah, so got here now, the GTO finally mostly together now. Pretty much got the body onto the chassis. Now, one thing I found is that there is a couple things to be keeping an eye out when putting this all together, primarily being the rear window and interior panel do like to slide around if you don't glue them into place. So they'll pretty much need a bit of adjusting once you try to get everything lined up. So, oh, so had a little bit of that, but with enough. But if you got enough patience and you know what you're doing, it's not too bad. So that went well quite nicely. Now, did have to take the steering wheel off as the steering column did end up deciding to sit quite low, which I'll probably get that sorted out afterwards. So get that dealt with, looking a bit more better. And then Stu got the engine bay here all ready to go. A little bit hard to tell with the darkness. Now, when I was originally putting this together, decided to leave the battery out, as I wasn't sure what the clearance tolerance was going to be between the cladding and the actual body. So pretty much what I did was left the battery out, get everything together, took tweezers, line it up, and then get it dealt, then pretty much sit it in place as is, and worked out quite nicely. Should mention though, when I was earlier mentioning how the engine was a 455, realized later on that these cars had the 400 big block. So the more you know. A little bit, not crazy amount of detail as compared to other kits, but overall for a shelf piece, it's not too bad. Doesn't it? The hinges, of course, are a little bit stiff while moving the hood up and down, and haven't really got around to fixing up the nicks in the paint on the front nose cone, just trying to get everything lined up. So it's a little bit unfortunate to have that happen, but whatever. Then on the underside here, got everything put together. Now pretty much got all the fasteners for the chassis all dealt with. I did find myself with too few of the long fine threaded screws. So, and then of course with that was left with 2 extra fine threaded short screws. So, of course, didn't want to have to take everything apart just to find where I used the wrong screws at. So, you can get away with doing that, but it's important to check over what you've got put together. And of course, trunk here. I do have this piece of tape over top just for the glue to fully set, as the rear bumper on the driver's side didn't quite fit just right, so a little bit of glue to get settled down. Seems to be working. And of course, got the full trunk and jack instruction sticker applied onto the back of the trunk lid, pretty much showing how to use it, which would pretty much go to either corner of the vehicle, jack it up, replace the tire that you need. So overall, it's coming along quite nicely. So yeah, it's not exactly the highest detailed model of a 69 Pontiac GTO, the Judge, that's out there, but overall, it's quite a nice little piece. And the only thing that's really left to do is get some of the small pieces like the chrome trim and such installed, which all pretty much is that take whatever piece you have, simply just aligning it up to the body. Now, there's not a huge amount of friction to the parts and the body, so would definitely recommend using glue to put everything together. So yeah, pretty much get some of the last of this stuff put together and then go from there. So here's the car now all done up in its famed glory. Everything about a lot of the small things took care of, went together quite easily, and quite a sophisticated little build to be working on. And since it's all pretty much all pre-decorated, not a huge amount of prep work needs to go into it unless, say, you want to change everything up on it, of course. So overall, quite pleased with how it turned out. Now, didn't really get the steering column dealt with perfectly. Let me get the light here. Yeah, so can't tell a little bit, but didn't quite get the steering wheel, as I was thinking that there might be some with the dash that it sits too low. But of course, the car's now put together. Didn't feel like taking everything apart to get everything lined up. So pretty much just leaving it as is. Overall, yeah, but overall quite pleased with how it turned out, and yeah, quite a decent little build up. Nothing too complicated about it, and of course, there's a bunch of different versions. Well, versions of these metal kits. Not exactly the GTO in particular per se, but you also have the likes of course the Charger and Charger Daytona. Probably a few Mustangs, couple Chevelles here and there. Same with a bunch of 20s and 30s hot rods. Then, of course, you have the likes that Revell did a bunch of metal models in the early 2000s. So, yeah, so quite pleased with this. Might end up doing some more in the future. So, yeah, see how that goes. If anything, might just keep these as more side projects more than anything, as there's not a real huge amount to them in terms of, say, customizations and stuff, as you are rather limited with what you're supplied with. But I'm sure if you have the right determination and right vision for a kit like this, pretty much do whatever you want. And of course, being a 124 kit, some might be a bit picky having 125, 124 scale cars sitting together. So, yeah, I mean, on its own, it's quite a nice model. Now, one thing I have found with the hood is that in order to well, for me at least, to get it open, what I simply do is just take this you want a small flathead screwdriver just to get underneath, closer to the firewall. Just gently pry it up as you go, and once you get to the front nose cone, the hood will just pop up as is. So, yeah, so not too much of a struggle trying to get the hood open, though you probably don't want to be doing it a crazy amount. Yeah, but yeah, otherwise, yeah, I'd say it looks pretty sharp. Now, for the wheel hubs, didn't quite trim all the excess flashing off, so the car doesn't exactly roll fully. But that's okay, as I know a bunch of people that prefer their stuff not to roll around, as you don't want to have something on a shelf and then one day decide to slip into neutral and then falling off the display shelf and falling into hundreds of pieces again. So, it's a little bit of something on my end. Overall, looks pretty good. I think that'll pretty much be it for this video. So, till next time,